but good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining the annual general meeting of ENA. You're most welcome, and we're hoping very much you'll be participative today. This is going to be a busy day for us. We have the AGM this morning, followed by the Members' Council this afternoon. And this gives us an opportunity to take the thoughts that come out of this meeting today, red hot to the Council this afternoon. This relatively short meeting this morning attempts to allow not only for the required formal processes of approval and voting, but also for participative interaction on a couple of important issues, at least, although we only have a couple of hours to get through all this, and therefore we need to be pretty punctual and stick to time. So the agenda today, broadly speaking, is a quick round of intros and updates from the three pillars of the Europeana initiative. Then we will have the two interactive sections that I mentioned on country groups, which is a new initiative, a pilot action, which we've been talking about for some while now, but is now getting underway. And on another strategic topic, which is around the data space and whether we are talking about culture or cultural heritage data, and what we can identify as what we need in the data space and what we're looking, or what we can contribute to the data space. We'll then move on to the approval of the formal ENA documents and the elections and the voting and the beginning of the voting process, which lasts beyond this meeting. So that's broadly speaking what we're after. I'd like now to begin by giving a short overview of the trends which ENA is currently addressing and the strategies that we're trying to adopt in order to address these trends. You'll see there the three major trends that we're thinking about. This year we've tried to create a slightly clearer alignment between the annual report, the strategy, and the action plan, which we ask you to approve later on. And I'd like to begin this session with a short interview of where we stand in terms of the main trends and strategies, as I said, and how these tie together. So this will be, we do hope that you've all read the documents in full in order to approve them, but this is a short version, if you like. This won't take very long. So let's talk about these trends first. While ENA, I think, may now claim to be Europe's major transversal network of professionals concerned with digital cultural heritage, harnessing the huge potential of what has now grown to almost 4,500 members, is likely to reach 5,000 next year, remains a prerequisite for a sustainable and active network. And we need to give continued attention in this direction. Europeana, the second trend is that Europeana is now the operator of the common European data space for cultural heritage. And within this context, the concept of the initiative as a three-pillar construct has developed significantly in the last year or so, bringing ENA closer together with the foundation, the Europeana Foundation, and the Europeana Aggregators Forum to try to ensure the successful delivery of the data space implementation. ENA and its activities have an important role in the contracts implementation plan, especially around cooperation across the initiative, capacity building in the sector, outreach and engagement. And we as ENA are closely involved through key members of many of the working groups and task forces on several current and emerging initiatives, including multilingual translation, storytelling, support for cultural heritage in Ukraine, data governance, visioning the data space, and decentralization. So there's an awful lot going on. ENA is very centrally involved with all of it. We're also represented through Sophie, our current vice chair, on the expert subgroup of SEDCHI, or however that's pronounced, the Commission's expert group on the Common European Data Space for Cultural Heritage. So we have a voice and a link to that. Turning then now to the strategy, let's just change the slide. Okay, so we speak here of energizing, we speak here of four things: energizing our network, sound and effective governance, inclusivity and diversity, and funding. We've sort of streamlined the strategy this year to cover these four main strands. And yeah, so energizing the network. So energizing the active engagement of a higher proportion of our members, improving the customer journey and creating experiences which are satisfying with a clearer personal impact remain high priorities for the network, which are not yet achieved. The 7 communities, climate action, communicators, copyright, education, impact research and tech, continue to be the driving force for ENA activities and impact on a vital mechanism for the entire European initiative. More can be done to support the take-up of the many very good outcomes of the community's activities. For example, through the planned country groups. Now, we're going to hear quite a bit more about country groups today as the day goes on, and we have an exercise, a special session on the subject. But these come out of the idea that there is scope within the Europeana initiative, not only for cross-border or horizontal activities, but also for deepening involvement and take-up of results at vertical or country level. So as part of the Data Space Implementation Plan roadmap, part of this is the formation of pilot country groups now in 3 countries to start with: Bulgaria, Italy and Slovenia, beginning around the end of this year, which once they're evaluated, we hope can form a basis for growth to other countries. Basically, the country groups bring together ENA members from cultural heritage institutions and reuse communities, education, research, creative, etc., together with national aggregators so that we can pursue understanding, use cases and advocacy for the data space, and also promote the take-up of Europeana's products and initiatives and connect to new audiences in each country. And as I say, we will have a session on this today where we invite your participation in thinking a bit more about the country groups. Alongside this, the burgeoning interest in issues such as the potential impact of artificial intelligence in cultural heritage, the role of 3D in the data space, the cloud initiative, new audiences for cultural heritage data, all these exemplify the need for us to identify where expertise lies within the network to support the knowledge of the staff who manage and operate the Europeana service. And we now have actions planned and underway within the data space information plan, which are critical to progress and include a new community collaboration tool and customer relationship management tools, together with market research approaches. So we hope to see the benefits of these during the next year or so. Inclusivity and diversity has been on our agenda for a long time, and the diversity of individuals joining ENA in terms of their country and the professional background of members joining is clearly growing, along with the size of the network itself. Projects are starting up within the initiative to begin to address the problems associated with post-colonial legacy content and metadata. However, little is yet known or measured about the extent to which people from marginalized and vulnerable communities participate in ENA. We still need initiatives to identify and engage them so as to ensure more diverse and inclusive involvement and representation, and to capitalize, for example, on the work done somewhat earlier now by the new professionals task force. We need to hold up a mirror. How inclusive and representative are our governance bodies? How can we make sure the membership's voices get heard in the long-term visioning processes? How do we ensure established cultural heritage practices and fresh views on the sector are integrated? How can we improve representation of different member states, sectors, cultural traditions and expertises in ENA's governance bodies, and widen the membership to underserved stakeholder groups, including those from European regions not very active in the European ecosystem, non-European audience groups, because we have many, many members from outside Europe, and stakeholders from adjacent sectors, as reusers and data spacing. So the whole IND issue, I think, is still out there for us. The third strategic theme is governance. The Members' Council is being refreshed this year, as you will hear later in the day, and a number of current councillors reach the end of their term. 3 of the current management board were elected in January 22. Fred, Milena and David will step down at the end of 2023, and the election of 9 new councillors in December will be followed early next year by the subsequent election or re-election of 3 management board members. In the process of setting up this election, about which we hope you've received communications already, we have tried to give a clearer idea to candidates of what's expected of them in order to fulfil their important and at times demanding role in support of ENA members and the objectives of the Europeana initiative. Consideration is underway, and we'll have a session on this at the Members' Council meeting this afternoon, within the governance working group also, to guide us on what the options are for improving the shape, size and the remit of the Members' Council. Beyond this, we still need a greater ability to support communication between members, with the Management Board and Members' Council and across the initiative. And this is also recognised as part of the outstanding requirements and is in the data space implementation plan for the remainder of the project. As a starting point, and very much a starting point, members of the Management Board and Members' Council are now taking on, from last month, I think, a greater role in the content of the monthly ENA newsletter, and Mariana is leading our activity in this respect. So the final strategic leg of our approach is to strengthen around funding. We think that to strengthen the performance and relevance of ENA as a legal entity consisting of volunteers, it seems increasingly likely that developing and implementing innovations and mobilizing a stronger and sustained contribution and engagement of network members to the delivery of the initiative and data space, albeit on a voluntary basis, will require and can benefit from more funds. It's appreciated there's very limited flexibility to meet this need within the existing funding of the European Initiative operation under the data space contract. So for this reason, we've been actively exploring the possibility of raising additional funding, including through paid participation in EU projects, either alongside the foundation or as an independent legal entity, which the network is. Although such efforts in the first instance will probably need to be carried out within the admin framework of the initiative, where the foundation maintains a human resource and financial infrastructure ENA doesn't have. There are also a number of outstanding aspects relating to how any funds raised by this means could be used and for what purposes, and these need to be resolved wherever possible now in the coming year of the data space contract, and we're talking with the foundation about that. So those are our current strategic thrusts. Now, to continue this welcome and brief introduction, I'm going to hand over to Albert, and I'm going to try and control his slides as well. There we are. Albert, please can you talk about the foundation? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rob, and thank you for this. First of all, welcome and give an update on the priorities for the ENA. So for those who don't know me, or you have seen already some familiar names and faces, but for those who don't know me yet, Albert Varre, I'm the Business Operations Director at the European Foundation. I will keep it shorter than for Rob's introduction, because you already mentioned a couple of things that we are working on as a European initiative, the European Aggregators Forum, the Network Association and European Foundation. And I think that what Rob already mentioned is that as of September last year, we are, with a consortium of 18 other partners, the steward of the data space, the official name of the Common European Data Space for Cultural Heritage. That's a fantastic name. Of course, we came from a digital service infrastructure. Is it different? Yes, of course it's different. And I think last year we have really found some differences that we work on towards the coming period as well. But of course, the infrastructure that has been built in the previous years is the start of building upon for the data space itself. So we had our first year. At the end of the first year is always together with the Commission and external reviewers to go through the things we've done in that year. And I'm happy to share that we have a very positive outcome from the reviewers and the Commission. And by that, the first year can officially is completed. But that's the first year. Out of a 2 years contract with a possibility of another 2 years as well. So it's a 4 years horizon. So if we look ahead, and especially looking towards this year, and we already started this for a couple of months, and if you can show the next slide, Rob, then it's really about laying the groundwork for change. So the first 2 years of the contract is really about continuity, stability, and from there need to build up towards making more progress and a lot of improvement that gives the data space for cultural heritage a very good place within other data spaces as well. Because, I think we as data space for cultural heritage, we've been seen as the most advanced data space. That's obvious because a lot of data spaces are not existing and still also in the making. But we have an experience already for 15 years where we talk about data, interoperability, frameworks, and all those kind of things that makes us special here as well. So looking towards this year, besides the fact that we already had a very great event in October in The Hague, the European Tech Conference, that was a very great highlight. We focus this year on 7 specific areas. If you can have the next slide, please, Rob. So that's one too quick. Yeah, thank you very much. So centralized around 3D, because 3D is a very important topic already from the start of the data space for cultural heritage, but also that you see in project initiatives under different European Union funding programs. 3D is centralized there. But we do a lot around that, and of course not only towards 3D, but a lot of other topics that we will work on. So, for example, I think the training and program is something that is new, that's launched and will be improved in this year as well. A new training platform, new trainings, where you as ENA member also can benefit from. And I think that is important. That is the things that we talk about. So, if we talk about capacity building, if we talk about increasing skills, it is one of the things that you also should be benefiting from. Of course, about diversifying user engagement is really important. It's not only about XR and VR, but it's becoming a more important topic. But it's indeed, listen to the users' needs. What do they like to see, and how can we help them and be more interactive with them, also via our tools and services? I think Rob already mentioned, and it's something that we'll be talk more about today as well, is about the country group. That is also relates to our relationship with member states, that we work really close also with ENA to make sure that we can increase those relationships. And I think the country group is a great initiative. To make that connection. I want to go through all of these topics very deeply, but position in data space is something that is also something which is very important. And I think we've really learned from last year in the changes there that Europeana is not the same as the data space. The data space can become and should become bigger, which also means that we need to position the data space in a bit of a different way. And you will see something next year, not in the data space year, but in the calendar year. You will see some differences as how we would position the data space there. So, Rob, if you could go to the next slide. So, I think already mentioned, we're working very closely with the ENA, but also, of course, with the aggregator forum to form the 3 pillars, the European initiative, and to work together on many fronts. I think what we've done from our perspective, and it's the part of the business development part, is that we share much more information about funding calls that are coming up that might be interested, but it also works the other way around. If someone within the ENA, we have examples of that, or probably has been approached by other external parties to say, hey, would this be a nice opportunity to be involved in such a project? We really work together to make that happen. So really get not only, of course, the ENA, as Rob mentioned about, looking to alternatives and additional funding, but also, we share it with you as ENA member to be aware of what's coming up, and that might be an opportunity for your organization. So that is also interesting. It's not only where we talk about the ENA, but I think that is a bit of the benefit you also should have as an ENA member, that you get that information and that hopefully you can do something with that. So one step back, what I just mentioned about the position of the data space. Next year, we're currently building, and we present a new landing page for the data space. So I don't know what the domain name is yet. It's a very long one if you have data space for cultural heritage, especially to type that in. So we're looking into a short name there. But it is really about positioning the data space. And of course, that will be linked to the initiatives we already have. That will be linked to projects that are going on. But it's also, for example, that will link to other platforms. So that's why I'm saying the data space is beyond Europeana in that case. More information will come. You will hear about it, probably via newsletters or other mechanism. But the last thing that I would like to share with you is the next slide. And that is something we already can be proud of. 15 years, 20th of November this year, 15 years Europeana. This is a 1-minute video if you haven't seen it yet. So that's it for me. So really looking ahead to another 15 years, but for the short term, enjoy the rest of the program, enjoy your day, and we meet soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Albert. And now, last but not least, over to Tom Miles, who's going to talk about the Aggregators Forum.
Thanks very much, Rob. Thank you, Albert. And I'm just going to say a few words about what's been happening at the Aggregators Forum, because it's all very much connected up with what Rob and Albert have already been talking about, and I know that you'll be discussing it more later. So we had our EAF meeting, which is twice a year. We had it in autumn in Budapest in November, and I am very happy to say that we now have 2 more accredited aggregators, and they're Catalonica from Catalonia and Slovakiana from Slovakia, and that brings us up to 42 accredited aggregators, of which 29 are national and 13 are domain and thematic. And also something that Albert and Rob have touched on, we're starting our new working group on decentralization. So officially the working group is about innovative operating models. So this is going to be about discussing, well, how can we make the process of aggregation more fluid? What are the new workflows going to be? Very much to do with the data space. How's it going to sync up with that? What are the implications for aggregation? And what do we need to make sure we don't lose if we move into different ways of working? The aggregators obviously will be participating very much in the country group pilots as well, both national aggregators and domain aggregators. And finally, the aggregators outreach event took place on the 23rd of November. This was obviously last week. We had a lot of very interesting discussions about how these new processes could be happening and what the data space is going to mean for people. The next one is going to be in June next year. So do keep an eye out for that. We'll be looking for new speakers, and we hope to see you then. And also we hope to see you before that as well. So thanks very much. I'll pass back to Rob.
Okay, thank you very much. I think now we move on to the strategic topic. If you've got any remarks or thoughts on what you've heard so far, just please put them in the chat and we'll keep trying to monitor that. We move on now to, we've mentioned already several times, the country group's pilot action. I'm going to ask Ad now and Sophie to run us through a little exercise, which we hope will bring you more into the picture and help to, and also try to get some of your thoughts on how country groups might work best. So over to Ad and Sophie.
Thank you very much, Rob. I'll kick off this session. First of all, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ad Pollet. I'm a member of the community and partner engagement team at Europeana. And I was asked to take the lead in the project that I'm going to talk about right now. You may have heard about it. Let me see if I can move to the next slide. I can. Wonderful. Country groups. In this session, we will talk about where we are at this moment with this initiative, and we hope to have your input as well with an engaging discussion after I finish my presentation by Sophie Taas a little bit later. So basically, what are country groups? This is actually an idea that comes from the Europeana Network Association, where they were always looking for opportunities for members to participate in the work, to present themselves on an individual level, sometimes representing an organization. But the basic idea is here to actually to deepen and intensify the impact in all the member states. So have the country as a focus for the activities that ENA employs and deploys. But on the other hand, it was also not just an initiative from the Europeana Network Association. We brought it to a higher level to the initiative and also involved the Europeana Aggregators Forum in it. So it's definitely something that is to represent the bigger initiative that Europeana is. From forum perspective, I would like to mention that these are of course representing organizations who are dealing with the aggregation to Europeana on several levels, thematical, domain, or on a national level, and they all have been invited to participate in this project. And the support should come from the Europeana Foundation. Me being the supposed project leader of the whole thing. Because what I would like to stress here is that we are thinking of a pilot, because country representation, that sounds very ambitious. And we cannot deal with all the member states at once. Not even the EU itself can deal with that. So that would be very ambitious. So we decided to go for a pilot and see to what extent it would be possible to bring people together from several countries, from several perspectives, from the Europeana initiatives and the data space. So this is what we did. We had conversations with lots of people. Actually, the whole discussion started, I think, very good in March this year. So ever since that period, we have been discussing how we could best tackle this in a pilot project. We decided to have a focus on all the European initiative, but also be sure that the data space for cultural heritage, European Common Data Space for Cultural Heritage, is one of the main focus areas for the country groups, which means to raise awareness and understanding about it, about the data space, but also about the work that all the three pillars of the initiative are doing. to highlight and develop use cases of the works that have been going on, to promote initiatives that we currently run, like the Twin It campaign or any other kinds of things that we are highlighting in our activities, and to make sure that that the work from the 7 ENA communities that Rob previously mentioned will be taken up. So, for instance, translation of valuable documents like the various copyright documents that we produce to make sure they are available and also disseminated in the various countries that we deal with. So let me see. Where are we at this point? As I said, we have been having conversations since March this year, and it turns out that we have a very great interest from almost 50% of the member states, for as much they are represented within in the European initiative. And we've come to the conclusion that we can best deal with 3 pilots and 3 countries that we are going to work with in the coming year, which are Bulgaria, Italy, and Slovenia. This is actually already part of the roadmap that we have for the data space work that Europeana carries out at this point. Also, in light of all those discussions that we had since March, we've received good feedback from both the Commission and the member states on this, and they support as well, and they hope they will see the fruits of it soon. As I said, we're aiming for a project with a duration of 1 year, from January until December, end of next year, for every country group to produce an action plan for what they are planning to do, and to inform them about what the remit of such a country group should be. We have developed a starter pack, which gives basically answers to most of the questions they might have on starting such an initiative. So there's a project plan in the making, and we hope to bring the people who we've approached, representing Bulgaria, Italy, and Slovenia, early in the next year, hopefully in January already. One important thing, while the project may last longer, because activities may take longer to connect to and to be deployed, I think it's important that we have decided to have an evaluation on how things are going. Of course, we are planning to meet and report on works every quarter to the initiative meeting. How do you say this? Entity, let me call it like that. So there will be periodical reports, but in August there is an evaluation plan with recommendations on whether the whole country groups idea is feasible, maintainable, sustainable for the future, and in what way then we can best deal with it. I think in the meantime, it's a lot of experimenting, it's piloting, like the project already says, but I'm confident that we will have enough results by August to decide on how we can best continue this great idea of bringing the country groups together and have them do their work in alignment with all the other initiatives of Europeana. I think that's it from my side. Maybe there are questions. There will be ample room for discussion or for your input after this, but I would like to give the floor now to my colleague Sofitas.
Thank you very much, Ad. I'm following the chat. I see no questions so far, but especially in the quiz that we're now going to conduct, I would like to invite all our participants here to not only chat, also raise your hand and be vocal if you want to somehow expand on or elaborate upon the responses that you will submit. So before I start, and let me also share my screen to make this work. We want to probe you this morning a little bit on this emerging reality of the country groups. A year ago, this was, I believe, not even seriously in the pipeline, but we've come a long way in a couple of months' time, and now we're ready to kick off this pilot with the three first countries. Okay, I started this poll or this quiz with a few very quick questions. This means you should instantly understand and be able to pinpoint one of the poll options. This first one is about country groups as they are emerging and as they have been pitched to you probably several times in the past year. And I just wanted off the cuff to ask your intuitive overall opinion. If you click blue, you fully understand the benefits and you do support this project, this pilot action. Could be that you don't see real added value, that you have the impression, okay, these groups are perhaps aiming to do things that are already happening in a different form or format. Could also be that you don't know enough about the initiative yet to really form an opinion, and in that case, you're welcome to vote purple. I can see that the pie is quite positively distributed at the moment. A bit of uncertainty was to be expected. I see also more users joining. That's heartwarming. Fabulous, but we need some more votes. So go for the blue, the yellow, the purple. So far, the added value seems to be more or less clear, but I definitely invite yellow to raise a hand, to jump in, to comment a little bit. Where do you see overlaps, or where are we lacking here maybe necessity or urgency to invest our time and our efforts in this? Okay, our undecided slice is growing. Yes. I believe that in a year's time, when the pilots will have run for almost a full year and have been evaluated over summer, we'll be able to come to you with a completely different scope of what it is that the groups ended up doing and which benefits we believe have been we've been reaping from this action. So far, admittedly, we need to go with the flow to see where this can actually lead to. So thank you to all the 30 understanding and supporting. Of course, we are equally interested in the undecided and the yellow votes. I can't see the chat right now, so if anybody would like to raise a hand, would like to take the mic.
There's one comment from Eric Williams, which is to the effect that countries are not always what people identify with.
I know why Eric is putting this through the table, coming from the same country. Hello, Eric, by the way, you know that I love you. Yes, indeed. What is the relevance of a country group is partly tied to specific countries. In some, it's bound to be a more broadly concerted effort. In others, it might be more fragmented, and we might even consider it more of a regional advocacy group. Let's say, in the case of Belgium, we can certainly see this happening. But I think the core of the idea, the gist of the idea and of the effort could remain the same. Okay, I'll move on to a next question if there are no further comments.
There's one more, Sophie,
Excuse me?
There's one more comment from Valentina from the Photo Consortium, who you know. It's strange to think about country groups in a pan-European philosophy that we aim to take with a data space.
Yes.
very much.
So, hey, Valentina, hello. Of course, this is a fact that we do not want to lose our Europeanness. I think in the end, what we want to do is to enhance it by making membership stakeholders, member state stakeholders, more aware what is happening here on the European level. And we feel, I also personally feel this in Flanders and in Belgium at large, that there is still a large group of potentially really relevant stakeholders that do not know sufficiently about what is Europeana, and now in this new virtual reality of the data space, what is it about? What could I bring to it? What could I take from it? How could I connect? So we really see it as a complementary action. We do not want to have the one without the other. I think the Europeanness is core to the action that we're aiming at with our country groups. But Valentina, feel free to jump in anytime. I know you have some reservations about this. On the other hand, Italy will be one of the pilots, so it will be interesting indeed to follow close by how this is unfolding in the next couple of months. Now, moving on to number 2. I said that a pilot is a pilot, so we will be investigating as we go how these groups function, how they work, where are the areas where they need maybe a bit more central support from Europeana Foundation or initiative at large, and where should we just let them go with their own specific country flow. Now, what I would like you to do is to indicate here what is your first intuition or recommendation on operationality of country groups. Is this something that we should try to steer centrally, so with Ad and with his colleagues at Foundation, to the largest possible extent? Do you believe that otherwise it might go nowhere? Then you choose blue. If you think that it would be better to have the groups self-organize maximally, so they decide each of their own what will be the size of the group, how many times will it meet, how will it interact, and so on, you go for yellow. Maybe you think the middle course is the golden way to go, you go for purple. And the orange one is kind of the purple one, but specifically tuned to each country. So it means that we have to accept that there is not one single model of operation or governance that we're going to install. No, we're just going to take a look at how each of the country groups is going and doing, and take on a bit more of central organization if requested, or let loose a bit more if that's the preference of the group. This is interesting. I didn't expect the orange option to take up such a big piece of the pie. Added to this, the purple votes that also go for a bit of a mix in between two. I think we have a fierce majority here for a bit on both sides, and I must admit that we were thinking along those lines, with Ad as a kind of friendly spider in the web, so to speak. We hope to have this central coordination in terms of a panoramic view of activities going on, but also having a one-stop shop, so to speak, for the country group pilots to check in if anything's needed, if anything's required from the Europeana initiative to support them in their activities. Rob, are you still watching the chat, and is there anyone with outspoken or specific opinions on this?
Yes, I'm watching it, and there are a few people with specific opinions. Yes, I'll run through them very quickly. From Stephen Kleissens, our friend,
Yes.
+1 for him, against the country groups. They go against the overall idea mission of Europe indeed. From Rebecca Khan, who says that the idea really resonates with her as a non-European who lives in Austria. Antonella Fraser says it is mentioned there are references to country groups from the past year. May we have links to them? This is an indication of feeling underinformed. We could respond to that. I think we can find references to previous discussions if Antonella would like to see them.
And provide more framing of context. Yes. So that's well taken aboard, Antonella. Thank you.
Happy to discuss that. From Jukka, another good friend. Unfortunately, I can't connect, but as the original founder of ENA, I think it's interesting to notice the constant development of its network. The country groups are indeed another complementary tool to increase the involvement of active people with Europeana.
Thanks so much for all your comments. These mostly pertain to the last question, which is perfectly all right. I think this is how we see it indeed, as this complementary effort. And the more that we started to discuss about it among the 3 pillars of the initiative, the more potential benefits we saw in actually giving this pilot a try. So it is about broadening and deepening the network. It is about also dynamizing or firing up a part of the network that is potentially more interested in national actions or activities with regards to the data space than coming to meetings or workshops where that are only in English, for instance. So one of the ideas that we have is to take outcomes from Europeana communities, projects, tools, services, and to organize local webinars or local meetings where they can be demonstrated and discussed in local languages. So yes, the idea really is to bring about a finer granularity in the network and the uptake of everything that's produced in the context of the data space. Thank you all for this. This is
a few more comments on the current slide, if you'd like them, Sophie.
Yes, please.
First is again from Eric, who says that the phrase "to steer" may be too forceful. Why not "to support"?
Okay.
Rebecca again says the answers to the poll kind of reflect European politics through compromise and middle ground.
Okay, yes, true.
What else do we have here? Valentina, well, if you want to create such groups, they need to adapt to local circumstances. One size fits all won't work for sure, I believe. I think we all agree with that,
Yeah. Yes, I think we fully agree with this, that especially in the piloting phase, we have to allow for different scenarios to emerge, and which conclusions we draw from this for the future, that remains to be seen then, I think.
Here's an interesting one from Claudia Porto, who I take to be based in Portugal. In my experience, self-organized groups do not always actively work. Usually they either tend to slow down over time, or they turn out depending on 2 or 3 very dynamic people, which is a fair warning, I guess.
Yes. Thank you, Claudia.
Antonella is pointing out that I misinterpreted her request, and I apologize for that.
Okay. Keep on following the comments in the chat, please, Rob. I think we are also saving these comments, Susanna or Tamara, so that we can go back to them later, because I still have a couple more questions to go and I'm conscious of time. We're slightly over with the previous session, so I don't want to make it even worse. Let me therefore run to the quick poll number 3. Just to explain, what should country groups ideally be dealing with in your personal view? Do you think that it would be interesting that these groups work locally or nationally on important trendy topics within the data space? So they talk about 3D, they talk about AI, they talk about augmented and extended reality. Do you think that would be the most interesting thing, to have these local think tanks almost? Secondly, do you think its a key area of action could be organizing activities, whether those are online or physical activities with their local stakeholdership, where people come together, can do different things? I will show you a couple of possibilities in the, I believe, in the next question. But do you think that the activities actually bringing local people together would be its main focus? Or do you think that it's all about audiences? It is about the stakeholders getting a clearer view of who actually is in a national stakeholder landscape and engaging with them on a slightly more personable, and closer level, by use of the same language, by knowing the same cultural heritage landscape, maybe even having some direct or indirect connections already. Okay, so activities and audiences, this goes very much into the actual stakeholdership rather than um, maybe the hardcore capacity building on certain topics. So you see it more, if I can extrapolate, that country groups would have a true networking function and mission to fulfill. Large interest in activities. This is also what we heard, that people have, members of ENA aggregators have been telling us that if such events in local languages and with local groups would be taking place, I would definitely attend. So you are indeed resonating here with a larger number of people, ideas that we've heard in the past year. Thank you. I'm going to skip this one since we are mostly interested in activities, and I'm going to ask you to now move a dot. Every one of you should have a colored dot that you're able to move about and to drop on one of these 5 drawings. I'm asking you here, which type of activities would you find most relevant, most interesting, or maybe I should ask, which type of activity would you attend yourself? I have 5. On the top left, core team meeting. So this would mean that you are a member of the country group core team and you would like to come together with this smaller group of enthusiasts to steer and to conceptualize what it is that this country group could do. Next to it in the middle is this idea of webinars, like introductory sessions about what is the data space for national stakeholders. And I know that in some countries this has happened in the past with kind of regular intervals. So let's say that once in a year you could attend a Europeana introductory session. Well, I was thinking of something like this, but then around the data space and with an iteration or a recurrency that, of course, the country groups can decide on their own. Then on the top right are the webinars on DS topics in the native language. So this is more specific than the introductory sessions I just met. On the right below, having national stakeholder meetings. So these are quite a bit wider than the top left ones. And then the live network events, the live events, yes. So these are on-site activities where you really meet people working in your sector, working in the same national cultural heritage landscape. Okay, so we are quite distributed. It is, of course, a bit to be expected that you guys who are attending this assembly would not be the people actually needing any introductory sessions. So I don't see a huge amount of votes here. The core team meetings enjoy a mild popularity, but I do see an interest in the specific webinars and then in the local stakeholder meetings. So you're not necessarily part of the core team, but you come together with your colleagues, whether that's online or on site. I believe if we count all those votes together, we have a fierce majority here, although I'm also impressed by the webinars. So this is something for the team at Europeana, I believe Julia and Sebastian in particular, to keep this in mind, that the taking up some of the core courses and capacity building materials in local languages is something that we definitely should facilitate for our country groups. I'm also enjoying that many of you are playing with the dots. This always happens. People love playing with the dots, and you are very welcome to do so, courtesy of Coander. Let me skip through the word cloud. I'm trying to round off here in 2 minutes, I promise. Okay, let me ask you to position yourself on this quadrant, because a pilot is a pilot. It's supposed to go, in the best case scenario, towards a more expanded country group effort in the near future. And what I would like you to do is to position your dot this time on 2 axes. As you can see, the x-axis asks you about timing. Do you think we should take ample time to see what this first set of pilots delivers in terms of results? So at least a year, maybe longer. Or do you think we should act on the momentum and expand as quickly as we can? You can choose any position also in between of these 2 extremes. Then on the y-axis, I'm asking you about the remit of countries. Do you think we should mainly aim to involve countries that are already today champions in the data space? There are a few countries that we see from the very beginning of these 15 years of Europeana that have been very active, both in using, contributing, and advocating the Europeana effort. Or do you think that it would be more interesting, also in the scope of diversity, to aim at countries that are still, after these 15 years, somewhat underrepresented in the collections that we have, the governance bodies that are in place, and so on? Now, this is really cute because it's a huge chaos of dots all over the place. I absolutely love it. Um, let's analyze this a bit more closely. So there are some people going totally out of the ballpark, asking us to take, please, ample time to digest. I think that's the majority, and to maybe focus on countries a bit underrepresented currently. I truly appreciate your vote in this, because it's a question that we've been struggling with significantly. We thought that for the first set of pilot, it would be a good thing to go with countries that are already our best friends, just to kick it off and to get the show on the road. But we do see much sense in taking on board, yes, these countries where we feel there is a huge potential, but it hasn't yet realized so far. Thank you so much. Fantastically insightful. Now, final question. Could your country be one of the next pilots to launch? You go for yes, you go for no. You remain undecided for now, or you think there's a good chance this might happen, but not at the first or the second piloting stage. Maybe if the format, if the initiative proves its value, you think there might be an opportunity to join. At, are you happy with all these dots crawling to the green space? I think this is encouraging, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, guys, we love to hear this, of course, and with all due respect, also for the no votes or the don't know or the later votes, we hope that indeed the results that we yield within the next year will point towards the relevance and the impact that these groups could go on and have in the future. So all the colored dots in the green square give me a good sense of your interest in this topic, and we will make sure to keep you close of how things unfold in the next couple of months. Thank you so much. If it's okay, Ad, I'll round it off here so that we can move on to the next agenda point.
Absolutely. Just to mention that, please continue to make your comments in the chat, because that's really appreciated. Your insights and your questions, your doubts, that's really helpful to help shape the pilot a little bit better. So thank you very much for your input. And thank you, Sophie, for taking care of this.
Very welcome, Ad. I believe we hand it over to Rob and our ENA's best friend, I would say, Marco de Niet, who have prepared the next session with a different focus, but I'll let them explain.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you very much. That was great. And it's a really interesting result from that. We're going to try a similar approach. Don't know how well this will work to the next topic, which is entitled Culture or Cultural Heritage in the Data Space. So this is kind of about, the host has asked me to start my video. Okay, I'll start my video. How's that? Okay, good. So this is kind of arises from two angles, really. It's about a discussion that, in fact, Marco and I were having. Marco de Niet is here with me now. Marco, I should say, as if you didn't know, is the previous chair of ENA. The previous chair, but one is now ENA's representative on the supervisory board of the Europeana initiative. And we were talking about a discussion that he had had in another environment about whether the data space should be about culture or cultural heritage. And this discussion, I think, has now sort of transposed into a slightly wider discussion about what people would be able to contribute to the database, or what they would be looking for in the data space. And we now have a little exercise to explore that. We'll be bringing back by invitation Sophie to do some more quandering a bit later. But in the first instance, Marco has been busy tapping up some of the representatives of the Europeana communities for their view on this issue. So I'd like now, if I can, to hand over to Marco for this next step. We will then come back and do the quandering, and then we will have a wider discussion. So this is the sequence of activities in this session. We have introduction. We have invited contributions from community representatives coming up now. We then have a feedback session, and then a quander poll, and then discussion. So Marco, would you like now to proceed with the next step?
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. Hello, everybody. Very nice to see all of you here online. And thank you for the invitation, Rob and Sophie, to participate in this session. Rob, as you mentioned, in the supervisory board, but also in other environments, we've been talking about the focus in Europeana is very much on cultural heritage, but we also, from the very beginning, used the slogan Allez Culture. So the discussion came up, if we're moving towards a data space, which is still very much a broad concept, what kind of content would the participants from who now contribute to Europeana, or who may in the future contribute to the data space, what kind of data can we expect them to provide? And also from the other side, if people want to visit this data space, what kind of data do they expect to find there? So we have compiled a small exercise again with Quander in a few minutes. But in the newsletter that you all received, there was also a question about can you already submit us with some ideas of that? And as Rob mentioned, from the perspective of the communities, we selected some of the participants and the members of the communities to give us some ideas of the kind of data that they could provide or expect to find in the data space. So I have a list here of some people from the communities that already agreed to step in and give us some ideas and inspiration about the data space. First, I would like to start with the community of the communicators. Carola Carlino, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Hi, Carola.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Marco, Carola, could I just?
Yeah.
I omitted to say something that I intended to say.
Okay.
Could I just say it, and then that might help people to kind of focus even more. So the point here is that it's envisaged that the data space for cultural heritage will in the future include a wider variety of data types than the current digital content of Europeana. So they might be about any aspect of tangible or intangible cultural heritage, its creation, description, storage, presentation, performance, transmission, access, preservation, reuse, rights, who knows? Or possibly even more widely drawn from across the whole spectrum of cultural activity, including data that comes from scientific or other fields, which eventually constitutes our heritage. So that's a bit more about the kind of philosophy behind this discussion. And I will shut up now, but I just wanted to give that slight expansion to what I said earlier, Marco. And
that's a good addition, Rob. Thank you. Thank you. So Carola, from the communicators community, so what kind of content would you expect to provide or find in the data space in the short time from now?
Thank you, Marco, for this question, and thank you for your invitation. My reflection stems from the fact that I'm a member of the Communicators Community Steering Group, and it is developed on the basis that of the work we have carried out along this time, also about the data space. So our priority is to safeguard the human aspects, values and emotions behind the data, because we think that behind them, behind every piece of data of the common European data space of cultural heritage, stand human inspiration, creativity, action, and knowledge. The Communicators Group wants to pursue this objective by exploiting the advantages of the digital storytelling, and of course, so do I. Our vision is to empower the users to share their ideas and to collaborate to the co-creation of the data space, so that they can recognize this space as their own space and take advantage of it. For these reasons, I made to find in the data space not only high quality data, that is the basic element, but also data that can be shared and used to create narrative models to inspire new experiences in education, research, and cultural heritage enhancement.
Thank you. That's a beautiful statement, Carola.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think what's very important, what you mentioned, and I fully understand that from the communicator's perspective, is it's a very much more a personal environment, the data space, probably, than you now have as an experience in Europeana. I think that's very important to acknowledge that and to work towards. I have a few other people that I will invite now. So on behalf of the climate action community, Corinne Steinschneider, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Hello,
Hi,
can
Corinne.
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm in Brussels with Ari because we are in the 4CH, the Competence Center meeting, discussing about the relation between the data space for cultural heritage and the Competence Center. So, yeah, so thanks for the invitation. Yes, I will speak on behalf of the steering group and the members of the group. So it's I will bring the different ideas from the group. It's not only my ideas, of course. And so it's based on the work so we are doing on this group. So we identified, in fact, 3 different aspects of resources, let's say, we would like to find on the data space for cultural heritage. And it's related to, first, the role and potential of cultural heritage to change the mindset, ideas, behaviors, and consumption patterns, generating positive climate actions, linked to awareness raising, increasing sustainability, literacy, etc. The role of digital technologies in supporting the climate adaptation and mitigation, and the environmental cost of the digital transformation of our sector, because we urgently need to green our own practices, let's say. So what we would like to find concretely, it's two types of things. First, a kind of a resource center with, of course, the work undertaken by our community. For example, the survey and the report and the manifesto, mapping of good practices, advocacy statements we've done, or we are going to, we will done in the next year in this group, but also the work undertaken by the other networks or organizations, such as the Climate Heritage Network, the hub, but also the European funded projects, and also what is done by members of the communities or others, I mean, relevant works. We would like to find some studies, statements, guidelines, European recommendations about the impact of the climate change on cultural heritage, but also about the role of the cultural heritage sector as a vector of awareness, and guidelines on how to evaluate and green our practices. And also some strategy to help the heritage institutions to access to specific funds in order to support their own transition. So it's and it would be very helpful for our practice, but also for the advocacy we have to do on this topic of the climate change, and to inform also the policymakers. I think it's this double approach. Also, we would like to find some metadata to help tangible cultural heritage align with decarbonization goals, and data about the carbon footprint of data, which can be valuable for professionals and policymakers. The other kind of exercise we've done internally is to imagine some use cases or personae. I mean, for example, I'm a teacher, and what I would like to find on the data space for cultural heritage. So, for example, I'm a teacher or a GLAMS, or a mediator working with young audiences, and I would like to find some already ready galleries, for example, ready to be used for education communities. For example, see images of the same places in different times to be able to studying the effects of climate change in several territories. Those kinds of data already pre-prepared, or giving some ideas to duplicate some initiatives. Or, for example, if I'm a director of an archaeological museum, I would like to find documentation about some specific aspects, for example, Byzantine frescoes at risk, and try to find if I can find some reports, videos, data on the data space about this specific case. So in fact, yes, so in conclusion, we would like to have two types of data, some resources for information, upskilling, advocacy, etc. And we would like to find some data we could use in our work, in fact, with the different targets. Yeah. And also, sorry, something very important, we would like to find here a tool to be able to evaluate our own carbon footprint.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Corina. I think what you're telling us is how much the data space will develop from being a collections portal, as we've seen Europeana in the past years, to a much richer, a much wider environment where the metadata is not just about the objects and collections that we have, but actually about our own activities and our own organizations. Yeah. And I think that's really a fantastic addition to a growth of all the work that we do. I noticed in the annual report of the ENA that you're still the smallest community, and I think what you just told us is a very strong plug for everybody to join your community. And
please
fantastic work that you're doing.
I mean, and we have to be very thankful to Susanna, because she's the soul of this group, with the support of Lorena, and
yeah, that's great. There's a lot of inspiration for us there that you gave us, Corina. Thank you very much. You already mentioned education. I'm not sure, Loa, are you ready to step in? Because Corinne gave us some examples of how educational information, information can be used to educate us about climate change. You're from the education community.
Yeah,
so,
I'm here.
Yeah, hi.
Sorry to say, but we have not been discussing this a lot in the community, but maybe some of my thoughts that there are a lot of sources, of course, that are very useful in education. And I hope that they will all be there in the new data space. Of course, this is very new, and I don't know what a data space is really capable of. But maybe the data space could provide some content-based material, like textbooks, or more like thematic-based material that could be used, hopefully, in many languages, if the data space is capable of some kind of translation. That is my hope. Because in schools, local or national languages are needed. And also, sorry to say that books are under attack, we know that, not just in education. It's a very difficult situation, but probably, but maybe or probably e-materials are more sustainable. But that is my maybe vision, that that there will be some kind of translation tool that the data space will be able to provide. Well, I don't know. That is a big question.
Well, I think this data space is something that's still very much up for conceptual development. And I think you're not the first one I hear you say this. I know that Europeana, with the current platform, is experimenting with a full Spanish translation of the platform, but I've heard from others. I also saw a tool that translates text to which are more ready for children to use. I think that would also be a great addition to the data
that
space.
Would be.
Yeah,
I see also here some narrative stories that would be, very good to have that also. Very useful.
Yeah. Thank you, Loa, for that.
Thank you.
Let's move on to impact. Nienke van Schavenbeke. Nienke.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
A quick reflection on all the wonderful things that I've heard from all the different communities. And here I'm speaking on behalf of the steering committee of the impact community. I'm looking at sort of, you're saying culture and cultural heritage data. And with Europeana, over all these 15 years, we've worked to gather all this cultural heritage data. At the same time, with the impact community and with the impact playbook for first launch in 2017, I think, we started first looking at how can we measure the impact, and how can we look at also the changing world around us, how we measure impact, whether it's in a museum, in a library, in an archive, in a research environment, like all these different elements. So from a data space perspective, I'm more looking at it from the data space could be an inspiration to change the culture. So currently I'm at the TU Delft library. How can we change publication culture in our environment? And I think that goes the same for a museum or for an archive so from those perspective, I think with the community, we want to, of course, empower the sector in the digital transformation, regardless of what type of or cultural heritage institute you're representing and from what your main objective is. And together we can look at it more holistically, also through the data space, where we can look at research intelligence about how and what is the impact of our activities, openness, the level of openness of our work, of our data, and maybe that could also be interesting insights. What do we need to invest in to open up even more? And also looking at, for example, research data. So there's so much that I'm thinking of as potential for the data space to look above the gathering of cultural heritage data, but for us to adopt a changing culture and being able, as a traditional but also innovative set of cultural heritage professionals, to change our own culture also for the greater good, because we cannot be static. So that's maybe our plea towards the data space, in short.
That's a great plug, Nienke. And it also crossed my mind when you said that, looking at it from a higher level, of course, we're only one of several data spaces. So,
exactly.
So it also taps into ideas. How can the data space for cultural heritage, how does that relate to other data spaces?
That's a very good point. And then I'm referring to the comment that Albert made this morning. We're the most developed, cultural heritage, we are the most developed data space. We actually know best what a data space, or with inclusive of a network, us here gathering this morning, a members council, all these activities that we're doing, we actually have quite a good understanding what it actually takes. So I think in that context, maybe we can also be sort of like a light or example to others. So that might also be interesting to share that.
That's a great ambition indeed. Thank you, Nienke.
You're welcome.
Someone with a more techie background, Max Dekkers, who has been with us also from the very beginning of Europeana. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
My video doesn't work, so I'm sorry that you're looking at a black screen. No, I just wanted to. Many of the things that were said, I think, are indeed something that I also wanted to contribute. For my background, I work currently for the Interoperable Europe program, looking at cross data space interoperability. So that was also something that Nienke just referred to. I'm also a member of the steering group of Europeana Tech, but I must say I'm not representing them in any way because we haven't discussed this, so I have no representation. My opinions are my own. But one of the things that I was thinking, and many people have already said that, the idea is that we need to think about what cultural heritage institutions can provide in terms of content to enable services to end users, research, and professionals. I think that's important. And therefore, I think interaction and collaboration with other data spaces is important to find out what they want from us. And in particular, the data spaces for tourism, for media, and for research, especially in humanities, I think is important to understand what they're looking for when they come to the cultural heritage data space. Now, I think from a more, let's say, technical background, I think it's really very important to adhere to FAIR principles. So making stuff findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And I think Europeana, of course, has done a great job in going that direction. But I also think that when we look wider at the other data spaces, and I must say that when we here say that Europeana is the most advanced data space, I think I've heard that from other data spaces as well, where they think they're very advanced, and so other people should follow their lead. So, but we have to be careful that there are different levels of maturity, different levels of organization, and I think we can all help each other to try and find the best way to doing these things. But one thing that from my background is really important is to have a good look at interoperability standards. There is quite an initiative currently for all data spaces to standardize on some common standards. For example, for catalog interoperability, DCAT is a standard that's being used widely. So that's something that I think is important to look at where we can share standards with other data spaces. But also if we look at the standards that internally are being used, and there is a task force on linked open data to have ways of expressing standards that makes it easier for people from other domains to tap into the great knowledge and the great resources that there are in the cultural heritage data space. And I think in the end, we will hope that that will lead to that cultural heritage information is more visible and can be reused very widely, because I think that's the whole idea of the data spaces and the connection between data spaces. The data can be reused widely for a range of purposes, and I hope that will come out of this.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you, Max. I think that's a very important point that you're making, that we shouldn't consider the data space for cultural heritage as a fenced-in kind of data set. And data should flow freely across the different data spaces. I think that's a really challenging concept to make that work, but a very rich one if we are able to do that.
Yeah, maybe not float freely, because some of the other data spaces are not really for free sharing, but at least easy sharing. If you want to share, that you can share.
Okay, yeah, good. Thank you, Max. And Jochen, I see you have raised your hands, but I have two more communities and we're pressing a bit for time. So if you don't mind, I'll do the other two communities first and then I'll come back to you.
Let's do discussion at the end of all, I think.
Yeah, okay. But I must admit that for research, I approached one, Ruggiero, but I think he left us. He was not able to stay in the meeting. He joined us in the first hour, but he sent me an email that he couldn't help. Well, I'm from an academic library, so maybe I should jump in for myself. I work at Leiden University Library.
Thank you.
And I'm also a member of the research community. So one of the things that, and I think this really taps into what Max has been saying, my library is also a founder member of the IIIF community, and we are very much promoting and advocating the kind of interoperability that Max was describing, but then also focusing, for instance, on annotations with images. So IIIF provides the opportunity to annotate and translate. And for instance, we have a lot of documents in languages and scripts that don't exist anymore. So in Leiden University, there are still teachers and students who learn all the languages, and it would be great if we could use those kinds of annotations coming along with the objects, and they can be shared through open standards like IIIF. I think it would be a tremendous opportunity for the data space as a growth from the current Europeana platform to have that kind of functionality in the data space. So that's for research. And then finally about copyright, I don't have anyone from copyright, but is there a member of the copyright community who wants to step in spontaneously now? What kind of copyright?
I could try that.
Metadata? Okay, Fred, yes, please, of course.
Hello.
Yeah.
So
Fred.
Apologies, it is spontaneous because we haven't talked about it. But yeah, I mean, I guess that just a couple of links that have come through from the recent points that are put in, about interoperability and around openness is the technological angles to that, but also the legal angles to that, of course, which is what I think our community is continually striving to improve and to facilitate. And I think that there's definitely more work to be done there. We talk about the different formats, 3D and so on, but just in the bread and butter basics. And I think that one of the sort of key things we're doing at the moment is the links we've got to the work going on to improve the data governance. And that includes things like updating the Europeana licensing framework. And I think there's some real core work to be done there in terms of expanding perhaps the range of rights statements and information and metadata that can be accompanying our content, and allowing that content to be shared sort of more openly, honestly, but also really bringing more of a new sort of ethics angle to this. So again, the question of openness has really evolved over recent years from simply let's share everything openly to a more nuanced understanding that for example, different culturals sort of ownership of different types of contents manifest in different ways, and perhaps a fully open, use it however you like approach is not always appropriate for different sort of cultural materials. So I think there's some real opportunity there as well for our community. I'll leave it there. I think that's what I've got to contribute.
That's great, Fred. Thank you. Yeah. So that's also a maturity that we are experiencing, isn't it, in understanding and knowing how copyright and licensed information, how we deal with that. That's great. Okay, so these were the communities and the perspectives. I think it shows, coming back to the title of the session, that we're not talking about culture only in the terms of performing arts, for instance, but it's really about who we are and what we do. So it's really culture in the widest sense, as I interpret it.
A very interesting comment from the chat, Marco,
okay.
From Stephanie Bertrand, which pertains to what you just said. She said, I think the question of the data space for cultural heritage versus culture is really important. As a contemporary art curator, I wonder, what about the content being produced by living artists, not represented by art institutions and by non-collecting institutions, e.g. Kunsthalers, regional art centers, artist-run centers? Is there a place for them in the data space?
I think that's very good question. I think what we, if I look at myself as a library, what we find very important is the curation part of the content and the collections that we have. But when we're talking about these easy access, I know that there will be a data space for media. I'm not sure if art will be included. Artists are included also in the data space for media. I'm not sure if there's anyone who knows a bit more about that data space, but I think we shouldn't allow us to have a gap about artists, modern artists, performers I know that in the Netherlands, the combination of culture producers and cultural curators, that there's very much work on building stronger connections there. So I would very much applaud that if we could do that in the data space as well.
Also, a lot of comments coming in, conversation going on about things like open educational resources,
yeah,
artificial intelligence regarding copyright issues. And Stephen has now come in with a comment. Says,
well, he's had his chance.
Let me give him another one. Sorry, a bit
no,
late.
sorry, Stephen. Yeah,
I do want to stress the importance of adopting collections as data view in the data space. Digital heritage from a research perspective is not only about objects and metadata, but more and more about entire collections being used as data. So this is good. This is a good feed, I think, into the exercise we're about to do with Sophie in the conduct. I think this, to some extent, this comes into it. So are we ready to hand over to Sophie now for more?
I want to give Jochen. Jochen, you put down your hand, but you raised your hand, so I want to give you the opportunity to step in.
Okay, yeah, one point. I'm now in a think tank in Hamburg, near Hamburg, to support art therapy research, which is quite rare, but digitalization can be of great help. For example, in Amsterdam, there is the Film Eye Institute, which I just could hear a talk in Switzerland, and there I saw how digitalization can bring up complex topics like from health, which are connected to culture, and that's a big opportunity. But what I observe, and like also in Hamburg, that still technological thinking is very strong in the universities, and the humanities is missing a bit, and particularly philosophy. I'm just reading, because I moved from Munich to Hamburg, that there's a lot of helpful philosophies like Deleuze, Bergson, so natural philosophy, cultural philosophy, which is not present. The artists do a very good job, the visualization people, like in Amsterdam, the Film Eye Museum, but I'm missing quite a lot of philosophy. And I know from Barcelona that they do MOOCs, very nice, to teach medical students to do arts. I think Europe has amazing resources for this, and I would like more platforms to encourage also the humanities, because here in Hamburg there are institutions who do it, but they don't talk with me even. They are so rigid. Who is member, who is doing that? So I'm missing some openness to really start a dialogue, collaboration. So let's enjoy again the deep sense of humanities. Let's not do it too academic, but live it. That's, I think, with Europe Time Machine. I know Time Machine a bit. Germany is quite weak in this. I think all the countries are stronger than Germany. So help Germany a bit to do it.
Yeah. I hear a conference theme coming up, so this is maybe something we should move forward to the organizing team. Yeah. Okay. Rob,
we're hitting some time trouble now.
Yeah, I know. Shall we skip the corner and just move on to the? I think we've had so much rich input already in this session. I'm not sure, Sophie, is that okay with you?
It's okay. Maybe we should think about having I don't know, a separate little meetup with people who are eager to play the quiz on this topic with us. So it's a great interaction that we're having, and we might probe a bit more if we do it alongside the questions that we devised. So I don't know, probably Susanna, there's a way to reach out to our participants to see whether people want to discuss more with us in the weeks and months to come.
Yeah, and we're still at the very beginning of the whole conceptual development of the data space, so there will be plenty of other opportunities, I'm sure. Well, thank you all for your attention and for great contributions. I really find it very inspiring. So I hand over now to Rob again.
There's some very great stuff in the chat as well, which we'll capture and try to respond to as well as we can. Yeah. So thank you very much for all that. We're getting a bit short of time now, and I'm getting prompts from Susanna the whole time that we need to do the business for which the AGM is created, which is to approve the formal reports and vote and so on. So,
yeah, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you. I'm David, and I'm joining you from Aberystwyth on the west coast of Wales in the UK, and I'm joined in this session by my fellow management board member, and good friend Fred Saunderson, and together we're going to be presenting 6 formal documents for discussion and approval. You'll have already received links to the documents, so I'm going to hope that you will have had an opportunity to read through them. We are going to be very brief without an overview of the documents, and then after that overview of all documents, there'll be an opportunity for questions and discussion, and then we will go to, we will put each paper in turn to vote using Menti. And just before we begin, it's an opportunity to thank everyone who has contributed to the preparation of these documents. A massive amount of work goes into them, and of course the much wider circle of people who contribute to the work to which they relate, all the work that's reported in them, and in the past, present and future. And hopefully Fred will have taken control of the slides. Here we are. So we're going to take turns, and I'll begin with the minutes of the 2022 last year's General Assembly held on the 3rd of November 2022. In the minutes, you'll find ENA achievements and strategic priorities for 2023 in light of the Europeana Data Space for Cultural Heritage, activity highlights and achievements of the 7 ENA communities and their plans towards implementation of the data space in 2023, and also the approval of the formal ENA documents. So that's the first document for approval, the minutes of the 2022 General Assembly. Over to you, Fred.
Great. So I'm going to have to speed us up a little bit, actually, because we're slightly short on time. So we'll just breeze through quite quickly. But the annual report for 2023, again, hopefully something you will have seen, covering updates on the communities, governance, of course, the budget, and communications information.
You've already heard about the annual strategy update for 2023, so engaging the network, sound and effective governance, inclusivity and diversity, and funding ENA, the areas of strategic priority.
And getting a little bit more relevant for looking forwards, of course, now the activity plan for 2024 shouldn't be surprising. Of course, we've talked about some of these areas already. Of course, daring is caring. Our 4 key action areas of engaging the network, sound and effective governance, inclusivity and diversity, and of course funding. Talking about our priority activities as well for the upcoming year, and looking forwards as well to a timeline of events and activities.
The financial report for 2022. In total, there was an underspend of €31,585 due to the fact that many activities, meetings and events took place online. It also included the activities of ENA communities and task forces, which also spent less than anticipated.
And here's the budget overview for 2023. Again, underspent based on the current forecast of €36,000. I will leave you to pass that information in your own detail.
And finally,
no,
you go ahead.
I was just going to say provisional budget for 2024, and again, you can see that there. The proposal for 2024 is based on the foundation's contributions of 85,000, which includes the forecast underspend for this year that I just mentioned. So you can see where all of that money is flowing. So this is now a really, really important part of today. And there's 2 stages to this. So we need to, under Dutch law, we need to approve the documents that we've just rattled through there. We've not given you great detail from time, but also because you will have seen these documents and they shouldn't be news to you, hopefully, a lot of the substance of them. But we do need this next stage, which is an indicative vote from everyone who is here today using Mentimeter. So it's a slightly different platform than we just used. And we will go to that in a second. We will just go through each of these documents. There'll be a voting screen for each one. If you could take just a minute or 2 to get that up through the QR code or menti.com and the code 25751808, and we will get that live in a second. We will go through and vote on each of these documents indicatively. If you do have any questions or concerns about them, please drop us a line in the chat. and we'll be able to respond to those outside of this session, because the binding vote will come just after this, which will be introduced after the online indicative voting. So if we can go ahead to the Menti vote. And again, the code is 25751808. So, approval of the 2022 General Assembly minutes. So if you could just take a second to vote there. See, we've got 38, 40 votes, 43. It's about 111 of us here, so it'd be good to get us to 50 or so, at least, if we can. Some nice hearts there as well for people. That's great. That's us over 51 votes on that document. That's fantastic. Thanks, everybody. So the next document, yep, is the annual report for 2023. Again, if you could cast your vote on this document. You're not obliged to agree. If you have issues that you found in any of these documents that you want to raise at any point, you absolutely have the right and the opportunity to do so. That's great. Yeah, that's 54 votes there. That's fantastic, everybody. Thank you. So the strategy looking forwards. So for 2024, is that sounding correct and good to you? This is your opportunity, or your first opportunity. You'll have your former opportunity in the vote afterwards. What I'd expect to see a little bit more discussion maybe to be had around the forward looking. That's good. That's great. Yeah, 54 votes, 55 votes. Fantastic. And the activity plan for 2024 as well. Brilliant. 55 votes there. Everyone's favourite, the financial report from 2022. Great, thank you. 53, 54 votes. Nice and consistent numbers of voting here. I really appreciate that, everybody. Makes this nice and straightforward. The provisional budget looking forward for 2024. Great. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone. So as we just go back, we'll be going back to the slides in a second. Thank you, everyone, for taking the chance to do the Menti vote there. I'm going to pass over, I believe, to my colleague Mariana, who will wrap up today. But thank you, everyone, very much for the time on that indicative vote. That's a really important stage in our process. So thank you for that, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Fred, and thank you, everybody, for an incredible, inspiring discussion. I was reading the chat, and you just posed really interesting questions, and we will surely go through all the questions and topics later. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mariana Marcucci from the management board. And I'm wrapping up very quickly because time is going very quickly. So as you know, we have the election for the Members' Council. Some people are stepping down, some people are new to the elections. We reached the number of 53 candidates. So it will be a very tough decision to choose 9 new members or re-elected members. So we have both. You will receive very soon an email with all the informations. Don't remember that you will have to vote again for the all the reports. So and also obviously you have to choose between 9 candidates. So I don't want to keep you wait because we have to close the session and we will have the MC in the afternoon. So for those of you who will attend the Members' Council, please be here at 1 again. You have received the link to join the meeting. So good luck for all the people that are, you know, going for the elections. I'm sure that we will have very good new members. And thank you to everybody who are not going to step for the elections. Thank you for all your incredible work in the past. And good luck, everybody. It's been incredible to be with you today. Thank you for the participation, very lot of people. So thank you and have a lovely rest of the day.